how did we get to use
Where
those?
did they come from?
Yeah, where did they come from? They come from God, some people believe, but more directly, how did they get into the film? Now, there's one we can talk to which is later in the film, but it's the notion of infinity.
That's right.
And that was, in a way, very simple because the characters, the mathematician Richard, the mathematician Philip and the writer Richard, are standing by the ocean and they're looking out at the vast horizon, and that leads them into a discussion of infinity. That's not so surprising.
And I think it's a topic. It's a great topic because I think most people at some point must have wondered what is infinity? What does it mean?
Yeah.
And there are many ways to approach that question.
And in fact, we were going to talk about it ad infinitum.
That's right.
Yeah, but
One could talk about it ad infinitum.
But it's a feature film.
Our time is limited, and your time, we heard, is limited.
Yeah.
So
okay. So we'll leave infinity over there.
That's right. Because you can approach it as from an artist's point of view, you can approach it from a spiritual point of view, or you can also approach it from purely mathematical point of view. And it's very interesting. This is a great playground for the kind of collision of different approaches to the subject, right? The concept that we would want it to have in the screenplay.
Right.
Another mathematical idea, if I may.
Yes.
Which the script starts with is this idea of symmetry. When people ask me, what kind of mathematics do you do? You have to give an example of something which, first of all, is simple, can be explained in a few words, but also at the same time is profound. A lot of people think that mathematics is about numbers, is about calculations, which couldn't be farther from the truth.
Oh, well, now Philip says this in our script. I still don't fully believe this.
No, he says you must be putting her on.
Well,
right?
Richard says that, but he's echoing my own sentiment. Yeah.
That's right. And Philip says, he says that mathematics is not about numbers. It's about concepts and ideas more than anything else. And he says, prove it. Well, give an example. And he talks about symmetry, which is one of the subjects of my mathematical research. And so. So this is sort of an interesting introduction. It happens in the very first scene, right? Of this idea of symmetry, because the word symmetry, everybody's familiar with that. In other words, it's a concept which we encounter every day in our lives. But what does mathematics have to say about it? And in what way can mathematics enhance our understanding of this concept?
But as for symmetry, Richard, the writer, when Philip, the mathematician, starts talking about symmetry to the waitress, he kind of wants to deflate some of this idea of mathematics and these large notions and talk about symmetry in terms of, let's say, breasts. Right?
Some body parts.
Some body parts. Yeah.
That's right. And so which actually, I guess, leads us to a bigger question. So that can mathematics be seductive? For me, one of the main challenges in talking about mathematics to the general audience is that it doesn't work very well if you do it in the most conventional and the most obvious way, which would be just to have a math professor stand in front of a blackboard and explain something. People almost have this sort of defense mechanism where they just completely shut down, and they might be even nodding and say, oh, okay, oh, that's very interesting, but they're not listening. So cinema gives you this opportunity to present this concept in a different way, which would kind of allow you to penetrate through these defenses. And so the idea would be to put the viewer or the reader at ease, to relax them, to put them in a very familiar environment where they will be watching and say, oh wow, look at this beautiful beach, look at this beautiful day, and this surroundings. At that moment, you give them a little bit of material, some concepts, which are organically integrated in the narrative. And for instance, what if these concepts are explained in a way where a mathematician, is trying to seduce a woman by telling her a story about mathematics, say about symmetry or about infinity?
Yeah, one of the extraordinary things in the screenplay, I've never seen an example of this in life, but is that actually the mathematician, Philip, talking about mathematics, does seem to do very well with some of the women characters he encounters during the course of this day. But one of the interesting things in the dynamic between the writer and a mathematician is that the writer is clearly interested in what the mathematician has to say about mathematics and his passion, and is, of course, like many writers, he's looking for metaphor as he listens to the mathematician speak, but he's also questioning himself the whole meaning of a passion for ideas of any kind in one's life, and the degree to which they protect you or guide you or impede you. So that at another level, the screenplay is about these two men, both of them passionate in their work, and the ways in which their work shapes their perception of other humans and how, or what that does to them.
That's right.
You want to agree with this point? I mean,
I think it's one of those rare moments
okay.
where I actually, I'm in agreement with you.
Okay, camera's on.
One of the moments when the writer is using his tools of seduction, but also the material of art that he lives by. In other words, these aren't separate things. The writer's not just trying to get a girl by saying he's a writer or talking about writing. This is how he's lived. This is what he's given his life to. So both things are at work at the same time. And so at this moment that I'm going to describe in the film, in the screenplay, the writer Richard and the mathematician Philip are on the beach. They've been talking about infinity and death too, because they're kind of related. A young woman walks by, Catherine, and she's a political scientist, but she has a background in math. So,
And she's Swedish.
and she's
We have a
Swedish.
very international cast.
Yeah, and Andrea Young is going to read the part of Catherine. She says to Richard, the mathematician,
Are you really a writer? And why are you so concerned about death? Are you dying now?
I need my glasses, unbelievably enough, to read this. Okay, so let's take it from you reading Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you really a writer? And why are you so concerned about death? Are you dying now?
Well, we're always living and dying in one and the same moment, are we not? There's a poem by Mark Strand. It is true, as someone has said, that in a world without heaven, all is farewell. Whether you wave your hand or not, it's farewell. And if no tears come to your eyes, it is still farewell. And if you pretend not to notice, hating what passes, it is still farewell. Farewell no matter what. And the palms as they lean over the green, bright lagoon, and the pelicans diving, and the glistening bodies of bathers resting, are stages in an ultimate stillness. And the movement of sand and of wind, and the secret moves of the body are part of the same. A simplicity that turns being into an occasion for mourning, or into an occasion worth celebrating. For what else does one do? Feeling the weight of the pelican's wings, the density of the palm shadows, the cells that darken the backs of the bathers. These are beyond the distortions of chance, beyond the evasions of music. The end is enacted again and again, and we feel it in the temptations of sleep, in the moon's ripening, in the wine as it waits in the glass.
I think I have to embrace you.
Please do.
Catherine and Richard hug, and the hug goes on for quite a while, until finally she draws back.
What a beautiful, beautiful poem. What was that line? The moon's ripening in the wine?
In the moon's ripening, in the wine as it waits in the glass.
Wow, heartbreaking.
Mind-blowing.
But, Mr. Writer, let me ask you a question, now that we have embraced so lovingly.
Let me guess. Am I married? Is that your question? Or is it, will you please marry me?
No, neither. Science types see this with a cooler eye. My question is, have you ever recited that poem to a girl before?
Busted!
So what's happened is the writer has passed on something that is deeply true to him, this poem by Mark Strand, and yet at the same time, it's part
He's
of his
done it
life.
before.
He has
Clearly
done it
has
before.
done it before.
Yeah. This is true. Shame on him.
Just like mathematician may have told about symmetry
Yeah.
to other women before.
And is that a bad thing? That each man may have committed such a grievous act?
That's that's a good point. I'm not sure. Is it good or bad? I think that's the reality of it.
That's who they are.
That's who they are, exactly.
Edward, one of the most frequently asked questions for me when I write fiction is the degree to which I'm one of the characters in my writing. Am I indeed the protagonist, let's say, of the beholder? And you can lose a lot of energy trying to describe the difference between art and life. But let me ask you, Edward, are you the mathematician in the two-body problem?
It's a very good question, and the short answer, of course, is no. I'm not Philip, and Philip is not me. Although, I have to say that Philip has stolen some parts of my identity.
Identity theft.
Identity theft. It's a
character.
widespread problem these days.
Yes, in art.
In art also, the characters in fiction and in art are stealing some pieces of identity of their creators. But for me, when I was working on this, obviously I gave Philip being a mathematician, I gave him some of the thoughts, some of the ideas that are dear to me, or and some of the knowledge that I possess. But at the same time, what motivated me was not to create my identical twin or to write an autobiography. But in this case, it was really to create the most compelling character, and maybe that meant that he would be more flawed, more imperfect in some ways, more human. In other words, I would give him some attributes which I personally hate, but perhaps I would think that would make the character more compelling.
Right. As they say in Latin, as you well know, libelli habent sua fata. Books have their own life. And to make a story vivid, what you want to do sometimes is take things you know and push them to an extreme, to hyperbolize them, to bend them out of shape, to see what happens to the characters. And then also it's a great joy, it's kind of a weird, perverse joy, to take certain qualities of oneself and make them more extreme in order to kind of reveal their qualities to yourself through art. That's part of the fun, what you learn when you do that kind of thing. So the writer, like me, the writer loves the Mark Strand poem. He makes probably a different use of it than I do, for instance, when I have my class read it in my seminars at Cal. But we both share this love of the poem, and it's great fun for me both to use the poem in this screenplay, but also to let it lead the character, you might say, astray.
So what happened next? So in fact, we worked very, very quickly, and it was very intense, a few months, and the first draft was finished really within 3 months. By the end of April, we had it in our hands.
Let me just add that I was exhausted by this and recalcitrant. I kept trying to slow the process down.
What does it mean?
Recalcitrant means basically when you see a 2-year-old who doesn't want to go out the door with his mother, he's being recalcitrant. I didn't want to work so hard, and Edward kept pushing the pace. He's ferocious. I had a life, Edward didn't have a life. I had a life. And I wanted to enjoy it.
This is how I work. If you're a mathematician, that's how you have to work.
I wanted to enjoy my life. And Edward kept pushing the pace. So in 3 months we had a first draft, and it was unbelievable.
It was April. It was April. Yeah. And my thinking was, I wanted to finish it by April, because then I thought, okay, we'll send it to Hollywood and we'll start shooting the film in August.
Yeah, Edward wondered what was taking us so long.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so there we were, we finished the script and we sent it to a few people. And we got some reaction, some mostly positive reaction, but it sort of became clear that we will not start shooting in August.
Yeah, there you go.
And so, but I have to say that for me, this process of writing and collaborating with Tom especially, really gave me the confidence and sort of opened this world for me, this new world for me, and it gave me the confidence to continue.
What the collaboration did was liberate Edward to go ahead and do the extraordinary thing of making a short dramatic film, which he co-authored, co-produced, co-directed, and played the lead in Unbelievable.
The screenplay is called the two-body problem.
Why is it called the
Why is it
two-body
called the
problem?
two-body
Why is it
problem?
called the two-body
That's
problem?
right. So what does that mean?
kept me up late at night. Why are we calling this thing the two-body problem?
That's right. So there is a